this week's FriBaT, Friday Beers and Tools with Andy. This week we've got another boutique type beer. This is Zytho Brewing Tropical Haze. It's a craft beer and a tropical pale ale. Happy Friday. I like that. What do they got to say about it? Zytho Brewing Tropical Haze. Long before there were beer geeks, there were zythrophiles. Related to the Greek verb zeo, meaning to boil, a zythrophile is a lover of all things beer. Tasting notes: the Zytho Brewing team have featured Citra, Amarillo and Mosaic hops by the bucketload to create their latest release, a fruity, juicy mouthful of tropical sunshine. Citrusy, tropical aromatics and clean bitterness are the hallmarks of this emerging style. It has a little bit more bitterness than a normal tropical pale ale type beer. It's at 5% beer. Available at BWS, one of the Australian big liquor suppliers. Certainly not my favourite tropical ale, but it's not bad. There is no such thing as bad beer, just better beer. Definitely citrusy. You can taste the citrusy flavours there. Quite drinkable, but I don't think I'd get it again. On my Spanner scale of beers, I'm going to give this one a 2.5 out of 5. Nothing really wrong with it, just not really my kind of beer. Alright, on to this week's tool. This week we got something a little bit different. Watching a lot of videos over the years and a lot of car shows, I was very intrigued to see one of these. It's called an air belt sander, also known as an air file, and like most air tools nowadays, they're gradually being replaced by battery tools. Battery technology is phenomenal compared to what it was a few years ago. This is an air file. I've done a review on one before on a FriBaT. In fact, it probably was this one. This is the 1/2 inch by 18 inch. So 1/2 inch wide is the size of the belt and 18 inches long. There are other versions. Also, I believe I've reviewed before. This is a smaller version with a 10mm wide belt, and I can't remember how long this belt is, but let's say 7-8 inches. So the two main problems with air tools is, number one, they're loud. I've yet to hear a quiet air tool. To produce the amount of power to be useful in driving, they do require a fair amount of CFM, a fair amount of airflow. And to do that, air motors make a lot of noise. That's annoying. Hearing protection, it's a pain. Admittedly, a lot of power tools, battery tools, make a lot of noise too, but air tools are particularly noisy. The second major problem with an air tool is that they require an air supply. Quite an expensive compressor to be able to keep up with a high volume tool such as this. Then you need air hoses. The compressor is also noisy, and it's just a lot of setup work. This is why tools are gradually being replaced, air tools are gradually being replaced with battery powered tools. Does anyone make a battery powered air file, air sander, belt sander? Yes, I do. Makita make one. I'll put a picture of it up here. So far, Milwaukee have not introduced anything like this in their range. And I was watching the other day, I found on eBay a conversion kit. Now, those of you who've been watching the channel for a while will be familiar with this little fella. This is one of Milwaukee's M12 range. This is the cut-off, what's its correct name? The 3-inch compact cut-off tool. Now this is the American version, slightly different to the version that is available in Australia, in that this one has a different guard and hood setup, and it also has a dust collector, which is quite handy if you're using it, especially on wood. And I saw on eBay that someone very clever has found a way to adapt this bit from the air sander onto this little unit and create an M12 air belt sander. Intrigued I was. That's the kit. Consists of 2 components, and of course you need an air belt sander to provide the bits that you need. What's in the kit? Well, let's just unwrap this bit. Don't discard this bit, it has a Torx bit inside it. Talk about that in a second. And the kit comprises of 2 components effectively. Very nicely little machined drive wheel, as you can imagine, to drive the belt, and a mount. Also comes with reasonably comprehensive instructions. No pictures, but that's okay. Take your time, pretty easy to work out. So, I need to work out how I'm going to set this up to record it, and then hopefully be able to show you as I go the merging of these 2 tools to provide me with an M12 1/2-inch belt sander. Let's give it a go. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to remove the shroud, and if there's a wheel installed on the unit, then we need to remove that. What they do very kindly provide, and I'll put a link in the description, a T8 Torx bit, which is what you need for all of the assembly and disassembly of this unit. Now on the Australian versions this is slightly similar in that it doesn't have this cover. The Australian version, and I'll put a photo of it up here somewhere, or up there, it just has a metal shroud. So once you've removed the one T8 and this little cover, that gives you access to the mandrel in the middle, and these units have a push button on the front to lock it in, and it is a left hand thread, so you need to righty loosey, and those 3 components come off. Don't discard them, we need one of those when we finish. Next thing is difficult to show you, but up in here there are 4 more T8 Torx bits, heads, screws, which hold this whole shroud assembly on very carefully, because they are into plastic. again, quite hard to show you this. Do not discard these screws, because you will be reusing them in the next step. Top ones are a little bit harder to get to, and sometimes you can move the shroud to make it a little bit easier. And the final screw, move the shroud again to get access. Very carefully. Stay there, screwdriver. And this little locking plate comes away, as does the whole shroud. Won't be needing any of these components for the rest of the build. You will need to remove, there is a shim, very thin metal shim. Remove that from that part, and then you are left with this surface here. This is our mounting ring for the file attachment, and you'll see that it has holes that line up with these, and it also is step drilled, or countersunk I should say, so those go out to this side. Now, because you're screwing into plastic, be very careful and do not over tighten. In fact, don't tighten them at all yet, because there is an alignment procedure to get your belt aligned properly. So just get them all started. Righto, after checking with the instructions, you can tighten these ones down further and tighten them in a cross pattern, just like you're doing up wheel nuts on a car. Take your time, you are screwing into plastic, and they very easily will pull the plastic threads. Okay, that's it for this bit for now. Once you've got the arbor in place, insert the pulley, and remembering that we have a left hand thread the Allen key is provided with the tool, and again lock the mechanism here and tighten. Then that's it for this bit for the time being. Rightio, disassembly of the airfoil. The airfoil also comes with Allen key, correct size. You also need to disengage the belt, which is just a matter of pushing down, and it has a locking mechanism here. So that is now locked. Loosen this Allen head off enough to be able to slide this unit off, and we don't need the air side of it anymore. Then it's just a matter of placing this over the arbor, and it feels a little tighter, so I'll just loosen that off a little bit more. without disengaging this. Once that's seated down, it is adjustable with this, so you can adjust the arm angle. And in fact, there is another mod which I will do eventually in turning this into a T-handled bolt, so you don't have to use a tool. But at the moment, I'm just going to set it in that position. And then with the unit locked in, reinstall your belt, line it up, and this little spring-loaded thing gives you the tension on the belt. Alright, grabbed one of my batteries, let's give it a test. Now, the last part of the instructions says that it's very important to ensure that you get the belt alignment correct. Now, the belt alignment is done, that's rather bright in the camera's face there, in your air sander kit, and in this particular case my brand is an Astro pneumatic. There is instructions to tell you how to align the belt. It's important to align the belt because if it runs too hard up against one side of the drive here, it will get very hot and cause damage to the belt, cause damage to the unit. So check your belt running. I'm just going to look at that. This one's actually perfect. It's not running hard up against the inside, it is slightly on the inside, but so it probably could be adjusted slightly. Okay, read the instructions for the air sander, and they provide you with a small Allen key, and inside the end here is a very small hole, and that enables you to adjust the position of the belt. And we've got that running a little bit more centrally now in there. Again, that's hard to see because of the light. So there you go. Milwaukee, why haven't you built this? But I have now. Probably the only bad thing that this doesn't have is a variable speed trigger, so it's really just on off, which is a bit of a shame because as a cut-off wheel it just needs to go and stop, whereas as a sander it would be nice if it was able to be a little bit more controlled. Obviously you can get multiple different grades of belts. The air belt sander does come with 3 belts, a 60 grit, a 40 grit, and what is installed is a, very hard to see, grit. You can get 120 grits as well, so that would probably be more than useful. This is very coarse. I think these belts that come with it are very average quality, so certainly better quality belts would be preferable. Rightio, so what's my verdict on this custom Milwaukee M12 tool? Well, for starters, it's not cheap. Let's talk about functionality first. Functionality is every bit as good as an air sander with these components. However, with the compactness and portability of an M12 unit. Unfortunately, it was not a very cheap build. For example, the kit, which included those two parts which I showed you at the beginning, I had to buy from eBay, came from the US. They're only $49.50 for the actual parts US, so that works out at roughly $64 Australian. But by the time I got it to Australia with delivery, it was $99 Australian. Cha-ching. The air sander itself, you can pick them up relatively cheaply. This particular one I got from Amazon, and it was $124.81. You can find them under $100 sometimes. I did forget to mention that, well, I didn't actually say it at the beginning, there is a version to use for the smaller 10mm belt, which possibly would be more useful with the smaller belt, smaller space, but in the end I wanted the larger belt. So $99 for the kit, $124 for the air sander, which of course I now is, the rest of it's pretty useless to me, and the actual cut-off tool from Amazon, currently they are $290 delivered. I'll check the Australian price. So currently the M12 3-inch cut-off tool is actually slightly cheaper at some of the tool shops in Australia at about $279. So we're getting up there. Let's say $280 plus $99, that's $380, plus $124 for the air sander, that's $424 for this tool. The Makita version, which of course is 18 volt LXT range, it looks like it's the cheapest in Australia I can find is $640. So it's much dearer. I thought it was actually cheaper than that. It has the advantage in that it's 18 volt, not 12 volt. But other than that, build your own for $420. Not bad. So value for money compared to the other LXT tools, because you have to buy an air tool and throw it away. Maybe you've got an old one where it's worn. Perhaps you can get away with that. It's a little bit of a waste, but for having this as a handy tool, especially be able to get into tight spaces with the finger sander, or power file as Makita calls it, that's particularly advantageous. Value for money, 4 out of 5 beers. As you saw how long it took me to build, not very long. So another handy little M12 tool to my collection. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks very much for watching. A little bit longer one and a little bit more in-depth for a FriBaT, but I hope you got something out of that. I'll put the links in the description to the parts so that you can order them and build your own. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next week.